Mrs. Sloan? Mrs. Johnson? Mr. Bear? Mr. Greenstein? Mrs. Nadolny? Mrs. Weisberg? Thank you. What time is it? We're late.
I'll make a motion for the adoption of the agenda, March 8th, 2016. Do I have a second? Mrs. Johnson, all in favor? 5-0, thank you. And Mr. Greenstein, we have a special presentation tonight. Would you like to introduce our guest?
And we have a new Area 11 representative as a whole, one is now president of NIPA. So I'd like to introduce our Area 11 rep, B.A. Sean. He's also a board member of Nassau Postmaster.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was here a little early, and I got to walk around your lobby. I'm a connoisseur of schools. I visit many of them because for 25 years I've been a wrestling referee. So I've been in and out of every school, every high school at least, and most of the middle schools in Nassau County. And I've been here several times in that capacity. It's nice to be here in the evening where nobody's really going to yell at me. But I am the representative to Nassau County from the New York State School Boards Association, and in a sense I'm also Nassau County's representative to the School Board Association. New York State is the only state that requires elected officials to take a mandatory course of training. School board members in New York State have to take training, and the School Boards Association is one of those designated providers of it. School Boards Association is also the principal source for board members to continue their professional development in boardsmanship. And after 20 years of serving as a board member, I think I keep learning more that I don't know. When I was merely a candidate in the audience, I thought, this will be easy, I already know it all. But the School Boards Association recognizes the effort that board members make to go above and beyond the minimal requirements, because in New York State we take public education very seriously, and we don't think that just making the minimum is our target. We're going for the top. So tonight, I want to recognize for their effort, for their time management, and their juggling of responsibilities, Larry Greenstein and Nora Johnson. They have received the Board Achievement Award from the New York State School Boards Association. And I also want to present Christina Naldone, the Board Mastery Award. This is level 3. This represents years of study and work. Just as a frame of reference, the level 1 is 75 points. Christina has achieved 250 points. And for that, she gets a certificate, which is good for training, and this portmanteau to help her store more of her papers, which will come. So,
will now go to student and community comments, just reminding everyone to please introduce yourself for the record, and we will have our 3-minute limit.
Frank Russo, President of the Port Washington Educational Assembly. Just wanted to make some comments first on a budget that I know you're not considering very seriously at this point that would meet the tax cap. I just want to go over my numbers as I see them. Pension costs, as I mentioned at the last meeting, are down $1.6 million. The tax increase allowed, 0.85, gives you $1.1 million. State aid is up, as best I can tell, by at least $2/3 maybe more than that, but it's at least $2/3. The increase is up $2/3. And retirement cost savings with just 4 teachers retiring is $250,000. That gives us $3.6 million more to spend, meeting the tax cap. So I just wanted to say that, and if anyone disagrees, please let me know when I conclude. I'm pretty sure there are going to be more retirees. We had 12 and 19, as Mary provided that information to me, the past 2 years, so an average of about 15. I think we'll get more once the budget gets more finalized. I guess some teachers don't want to announce it yet. We're going to get probably more state aid and some maintenance savings with money that gets covered by bond expenditures. Another key fact is the class size, because I know all studies that I've seen show that class size is critical for lower elementary grades. As you get higher in the grades, it's less critical. At Schreiber, based on the data I've seen, and I don't know if you all see it, I presume you do, there are 250 classes with 19 or fewer students at Schreiber. 120 of them, I think, are justified. They're AIS, ESL, other special needs classes, so I wouldn't question those. The other 130 are 19 and under, regular classes. I think if we could consolidate just 1/5 of them, we'd save 5 teaching positions. If we save 2/5, we'd save 10 teaching positions, which could then be used for the other positions that you say you need at elementary school or other positions that you need. So I want to make sure you look at those class sizes, because somehow I thought someone was challenging that when I mentioned it at the last meeting. There are 130 regular classes, 19 or fewer students. And finally, there's a quality of issue and fairness issue that's been brought up. I hear this from many parents and others about our teachers tutoring children within the district. That should not be allowed. Jericho is a wonderful school district. They don't allow it. It's unfair to students who can't afford tutoring or don't need the tutoring. It's unfair to them to allow our teachers to tutor kids, even in other classes. I know they can't tutor their own students, but they can tutor other students in the same grades.
30
That's
seconds.
unfair. It should not be allowed. It's a basic unfairness to the students who don't get tutored. It's black and white issue, so I don't know why it's allowed. It should be stopped immediately. And with that, I just think we need better contracts and better financial management to resolve our problems. We don't have to break the cap, in spite of the fact that I know you're considering doing it. I hope sincerely it's not necessary, but thank you very much. And you're all doing a good job. You're all wonderful people. I know that.
Are there any other community comments at this time? Yes? Yes.
Evening, I'm Bob Del Muro, Deputy Chief Bob Del Muro, Chief of Patrol for Washington Police. First off, I'd like to thank the board and Superintendent for the continued cooperation we have working with the schools and have had since I've been here, much better than most school districts and police departments in Long Island. But I would like to say that I understand you're having demand traps installed over the summer, which is good for security, but really I'm in favor of the hiring of the extra security guards. I think they are very key in the safety of the schools, and they assist us and have worked well with us for many, many years since you've had them. I think they're a big asset, and speaking for the police department, we appreciate you hiring these people. They help us out a lot. I think it's going to be a good addition. Thank you.
Dave Sattinger. That prompted me to get up because we're the only school in the region on the fiscally stressed list. We're looking at piercing the cap. We've just got to have better financial management. And while I appreciate security is an important issue, at this point in time, we as a district don't have the resources for it, and we also don't have the resources for the additional operations manager we're looking for. If we want to get more security guards, which I appreciate why we would want to do that, I would suggest we wait another year and secure some of the new construction sites by using bond money to hire them at that point. But at this point in time, when we're the only district in the area that's on the stress list, when we're the only district close to us looking to pierce the tax cap, when we are looking at those costs adversely affecting low and middle income and minorities and seniors the most, not now. We can wait a year and do it the right way. At some point, this district's got to become more fiscally responsible. So that's my opinion, and I thank you for your time.
George Border. I just have a brief comment. Would the board and everyone stop using man trap? I mean, this is 2016. Let's call it person trap or whatever you want to call it, but man trap? Thank you.
There are no other comments at this time. We will move on. Do we have certificates this evening that I don't know about? No. Okay. I just wanted to say briefly, we've had a lot of exciting things going on in the district outside of the actual school district, but within the community, focusing on education, and it's exciting to see how passionate our community is about education. A few evenings ago, it may have been last week, we saw the movie Beyond Measure that was brought to Landmark by community members, and today we had Frank Bruni at the Landmark speaking about education, and it's wonderful to see so many people come out and be so interested. So it's exciting, and as we talk about the budget, it's not the most exciting time, but I hope that we can keep focusing on our kids and education and the positive things going on here, and not just about the things we all may see differently, different points of view. And with that said, I'll turn it over to our superintendent.
Thank you, Mrs. Sloan. I also want to thank everyone for coming out tonight, and hope that everyone is enjoying what seems to be hopefully the beginning of spring. It's hard to believe that we will be turning the clocks back an hour this weekend, so make sure you oh, next weekend? Spring ahead. Oh, we lose an hour. I know we lose an hour, so that's all I know. Okay, so here's some positive things, some great things that have happened and will be happening in the next week or so here in the district. I want to congratulate the Schreiber Drama Club for their fabulous production of How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying this past weekend. Their talents are absolutely amazing. I hope that you were able to come out and enjoy the show. They did a fabulous job, as I said. The weekend of March 18th, we will be having the middle school drama production, and I strongly, strongly encourage you to come out and support the students. They've been doing a great job. I believe the show is Guys and Dolls. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, got it right. This Thursday night is our District Band Spectacular at the Tillis Center. This year, we decided to go on a little bit of a rotational schedule. So instead of Night of 1,000 Strings, we will be doing our District Band Spectacular. So give the band students an opportunity to showcase their talents, and that's elementary grades all the way up through the high school. I'm very, very excited about that. Please come. I know you will not be disappointed in that. I also, I got some early news today from Weber about the Math Olympiad team. They placed first and second in their most recent competition, and our Science Olympiad students are doing extremely well also. I also just wanted to provide a very brief update on our GEA advocacy campaign and the letters. I do want to thank Parent Council and our HSA PTA co-presidents for spearheading the letter writing campaign and collecting all the letters. And Chris Nadolny, thank you for hand delivering a set of letters to Michelle Schimmel last Friday. And I believe Larry is going to be delivering letters to Senator Martins. From the district office, we have mailed copies of all of these letters to Governor Cuomo. It's just a really, really important advocacy. I also want to thank our parent council leaders and some of our HSA PTA leaders. They also met directly with Michelle Schimmel to talk about this restoration of our GEA funds. And, you know, we also sent, on behalf of the superintendent, the Board of Education, and all our HSA co-presidents, we sent additional letter advocating to both Michelle Schimmel and to Jack Martins in the hopes that they will move it forward in their respective areas to the speakers in those areas. So again, we are trying on all levels to access the monies that should be restored to us. As we know, this will greatly help. So anything that anybody can do, there is nothing preventing anyone from continuing to send advocacy letters, and I strongly encourage folks to do that. And just finally, we will be having some additional discussion tonight with the budget, just with regard to where we are. But before we get to that, I'm just going to ask Ms. Fennick to give us a brief update on the current enrollment and our kindergarten registration.
Thank you, Dr. Mooney. As of March 2nd, our student enrollment is 5,449 students. We're 112 students more. We have 112 students more now than we did at the same time last year. Kindergarten enrollment. As of March 7th, yesterday, we have 294 children enrolled. Our projected enrollment is 420. We are, if I compare the numbers to last year at this same time, we're very similar. Last year we were at 299 at this time, and now we're at 294. So we're moving along. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll make a motion for the approval of the minutes, February 23rd, 2016. Do I have a second? Ms. Johnson, all in favor? 5-0, thank you. And we'll move to our discussion item, the budget. Mrs. Callahan?
Thank you, Mrs. Sloan. We will actually begin with our instructional staffing, and I am going to turn back to Dr. Mooney to talk to us about the needs the list that we have generated in combination with speaking to our principals and directors relative to our enrollment. And Dr. Mooney, if you don't mind.
Thank you. I just want to offer some greater clarification on some of these staffing recommendations. As we have stated previously, that in order to achieve all of these staffing recommendations, we would have to override the budget. They cannot be accomplished through the staying within the levy limit. However, there's some important information to understand about this list. The first one just has to do with the class size sections that we are requesting. And just to be clear, we are asking for 5 sections. However, we're only looking to fund 4 of those sections because the PEP recommendation is for 2 teachers to reduce that program from 3 teachers to 2 teachers. And that recommendation is regardless of whether we would stay within the levy limit or whether we would override the levy limit, because it is a way for us to gain one elementary section by transferring or reallocating that staff. Again, just to be clear, if we are unable to get the sections that we are currently asking for, I was asked to provide some specific examples of what does that mean. So for example, at Guggenheim currently has 4 sections of 4th grade. One scenario would be that we would have to consolidate those 4 sections to 3 sections, and that would result the classes starting at 28 children in a class. At Manor Haven, the current 2nd grade is 4 sections. We might have to consolidate that to 3 sections, and that would start the year with 26, 27 students in a class, which is what happened this current year. The current 3rd grade would have to remain at the 3 sections that they have, which is at about 25 students a class. Should Manor Haven require 4 sections of kindergarten, we might have to reduce the current 1st grade from 4 sections to 3 sections, and that could potentially have 26 students in a class to start. At Daly and Salem, it's a similar situation with the kindergarten, that if they require 4 sections of kindergarten, we would have to consolidate somewhere, potentially the current kindergartens that are at 4 sections, 3 sections to 1st grade, also resulting in class sizes of about 24, 25 students per class. I want to be very clear. We do not want to have to do this. We may have to look at other class sections in all of the schools and potentially reallocate and consolidate in other places in order to bring relief to schools that may be far exceeding what the board policy will be. It also could require that the board would have to waive their class size policy on more classes than we want to ask them to be able to do. So I just want to offer, again, some information about where our thoughts are. Another requirement for us are the ESL positions. So regardless of whether we override the tax cap or not, we still have to find funding for the 3 ESL teachers because the regulations require that of us, which would then have us looking at reallocating other existing positions. Now, the first place that we would have to look for that are on some non-mandated programming when there's not very much left that's not mandated. So again, just to be clear that we would be looking at that as well. So that is definitely of great concern to all of us in that area. So that's an overview of where we are just with our instructional staffing recommendation. We stand behind the recommendations that we are making, and we feel that these are very important for our instructional program for next year.
Thank you, Dr. Mooney. I simply want to draw attention to the subtotal on the first page, which is slightly lower than it had been during our last presentation. When I originally added up the total number of staff, my assumptions included full family health coverage for all new employees. I think that because I always try to be the most conservative and be prepared to pay those bills, but I did go back and make an adjustment, assuming, again, that we will have some folks who will take family health coverage, some who will be eligible for individual, and some who will take the district rebate instead. So that simply lowered that subtotal by about $40,000 or $45,000. I'd like to go on to the next page, which includes the supervisor of operations and the security aides. With regard to the supervisor of operations, since our last meeting, I did do a little bit of research. There are about 9 school districts in Nassau County who have more than 5,000 students. Of those 9, you might recall, because Mr. Baer actually had done some fact-checking and presented to the community, that Port Washington is among 6 of those 9 who has growing enrollment. And then within those 6 districts of over 5,000 students, 4 of the 6 do have the position that we are recommending to you as supervisor of operations. We did, in the course of our initial conversation, talk to you and to the community about this individual assisting in bond work and working with Mr. Restano so that he could devote more time to the bond. We did, at Mr. Greenstein's suggestion, check with our attorney regarding payment of that individual out of bonding funds, and that is not legal to do. This individual, however, is not going to be a primary bond person. Our expectation is that this individual, while being a civil service position, would be quasi-administrative. It would be a person outside of the custodial bargaining unit, which we believe is essential, not so different from any place in private industry. This is going to be a night supervisor, someone whose time will overlap with Mr. Restano, who, as the director of facilities, starts his day with the morning shift at 7 a.m. This individual would begin work at sometime around 2 or 2:30 and would work till the end of the second shift, which is 11 o'clock at night. We believe that we have systems, heating systems, ventilating systems, plumbing systems, that need constant evaluation. We need systems put in place to assure that we're not reacting, that we're being proactive in maintaining what we do have. Right now, we have one individual who is handling 850,000 square feet of property for the district and 120 acres with 77 employees, and it is not realistic to believe that one person can set up systems that have not been in place for all these years, and to do it within the hours of 7 and 5, and deal with all the other issues that come up day to day to day, which I could enumerate, but I would be boring everyone. So, from my perspective, this is an essential, and it is not a large expense in the overall view of the budget, but I think overall it saves the district much more money in the long run to maintain what we have instead of fixing everything and running after problems, to be prepared and to address things before they become problems. And this is simply a list of other items relative to what our external auditors have told us and our internal auditors' recommendations that we do need to address, and I have had to respond in writing to the State Education Department indicating why we are unable to fulfill the recommendations of our auditors. So if the position does not fit into this budget, we will see those same recommendations coming from the external auditors for a second year in a row, and it becomes more problematic when those things begin to appear year after year. So I simply want to alert the board to that could potentially happen if the intent is not to consider this position. Now, you may look at this map and wonder what it is, right? Lots of dots all over the place. Well, I am very sorry to tell you that these are school shootings in America since 2013. 170, according to this particular website. Also on this, and I am not saying that this website is 100% accurate, but I do think that there are many school districts that never thought that there would be a shooting in their school district. Among these shootings, half of them, or 54%, occurred in K-12 programs. The balance of them were in higher ed programs. The cost of an additional security aid is $30,000 for an overall cost of $120,000. These individuals are trained professionals who have retired from police work, and I think that what we are doing is giving our children the gift of time. If, God forbid, we ever were to deal with something like this, I think that entryway systems are a deterrent. I think that beyond that, any human being who is capable to slow down an intruder is going to give our children the gift of a few seconds, not necessarily even a minute, but I think this is a very small price that we are asking the community to pay. And if you look back at this map, out of 51 states, there are only 9 that do not have a red dot. The Northeast corridor has been very fortunate. Actually, this map is missing Connecticut. There was also a quote on this website that indicated that in the 2 years subsequent to Sandy Hook, there had been 94 more school shootings. Oh, and the white dot, if you go to the website, you can click on any one of those dots, and it will tell you what the circumstances were.
Ms. Callahan, I'm sorry, I just want to add to this.
Yes.
I think I have to turn, okay, thank you. I just want to add that, first of all, we totally appreciate and feel very fortunate to work with the Port Washington Police Department and the Sands Point Police Department to ensure the safety and security of our students, our families, and our staff. All of this is just very, very important. Another one of Mr. Ostano's responsibilities is he is the district safety officer, and he is the liaison with many of these organizations. Mr. Miller, our assistant principal at Schreiber High School, oversees our security aides, and he is also deeply involved in keeping us current and up to date. Another very, very important group in our district is our Emergency Preparedness Committee. This committee is a group of volunteers of security experts and professionals who live in our school district, and they are so committed to working with us and supporting us and counseling us when certain situations arise. I have to say, they are there for us anytime something is needed to be vetted through them. Any hour of the day. And they strongly encourage us and believe that the additional security aids are a very valued component of a recommendation for this year's budget. So we feel very strongly that we need to do all that we can to ensure the safety of our students, our families, and our staff. So.
Thank you, Dr. Mooney. This page restates what we have said at prior meetings relative to the actual percentage budget increase as well as levy increase, the cost to the average homeowner. As Dr. Mooney mentioned this evening, within the levy limit, there will definitely be some reallocation of staff made in order to provide relief at the elementary sections and to provide for our ENL program. If the ultimate decision is to attempt to pierce the cap, then our levy limit would be 1.85, and we would be restoring positions that have over the last 5 years been eliminated through attrition. I have heard much about the potential additional state aid, and that may very well come to pass. But as Mr. Baer said at our community forum, we cannot build a budget at this point with other than facts. And the fact of the matter is that this district has received an additional $198,000 in the form of state aid. Any other state aid that the district received was for expenditure-driven aid, which means if we spent the money last year on textbooks, library and computer supplies, on transportation, we received our aid based on what we spent. The only money that is new money to this district for the gap elimination aid is an additional $198,000. So I know that the board is waiting, as is the administration, to hear what the state's final decision is relative to their own budget, which, parentheses, as you know, nobody in the state has to vote on, but you vote on school district budgets, end parentheses, and commentary. But I also want you to know that we are among the wealthiest districts on Long Island, and that while we educate 12.5% of the students of the state, being one of those 34 wealthy districts, we only receive 5.75% of our cost in the form of state aid. So we educate more children, we send far more tax money to Albany than what is given back to us based on the existing formulas. So we will all wait and see where the state ends up, and if that helps us in giving the board information to guide their decision. And then, of course, the tax levy limit, as we know, makes it impossible, as it is now, to have replaced all those retiring staff members or to implement additional programs. 2% or the cost of living is not going to give us that opportunity for creativity and expansion. It does not consider that the CPI, in the CPI, that there is a regional cost difference. The CPI is the same in Albany County and up in Lake Placid as it is down here in Port Washington and Manhasset, and prices and costs of living are very different. And the last item relative to the cap is to advise people that the rebate for 16-17 that will be given by the state to taxpayers who live within the levy limit will be $130, which is very different, I think, from checks that were received this year, which included 2 years' worth of tax levy rebates and the tax freeze, which Port Washington was able to participate in. I don't want to forget, we have not placed much emphasis to this point on the fact that there will be a second proposition on the ballot on May 17th for asking the community for authorization to see if we have viability in selling a 5-acre parcel of land that the district owns in Sands Point, which currently we refer to as the Gatehouse, which is up near the Helen Keller Center on the right side of the road as you continue north. If the community authorizes that, then we will, we have gotten an appraisal for the land, and we will either seek real estate proposals or will attempt to sell the land directly. And that is the end of my presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Mary. I sent something around the other day, and I can't recall what the number was, but we had, throughout New York State, there are a decent amount of school districts that were considering piercing the tax cap. Do you recall the percentage on that one?
Yes, I think the number was 72 districts at this point, and it was 12.5%. And I found that to be interesting because the website for the tax levy limit requires school districts to file by March 1st, but those numbers can be adjusted up until the middle of April. Since our district has not made any decision, my filing is based on being within the levy limit. So I believe there could be other districts similar to Port Washington out there who may or may not be fiscally stressed, who feel that they need to make that decision this year as well. So I think that number will change and it will go upward.
Also, at this point, do you anticipate any further retirements coming our way?
I would not anticipate any further unless someone has a life-altering decision, because there was an early notice incentive, and unless people are independently wealthy, I would think they would have opted for it during the time they had the chance, which ended in January, the end of January.
Thanks. One question. How much is our health care premiums going up next year? About what the pension's going down?
It's ironic. It is almost an equal dollar amount. The percentage increase in health insurance was just under 8 because there are a variety of different rates depending on whether it's single coverage or Medicare coverage and so on, but the average came out to just under 8%. The retirement systems, both retirement systems did go down, and the combined total was about $1.5 million, which almost equaled what the cost of health insurance went up, so one negated the other.
So that's a wash. We're, if I understand it correctly, we're under the hold harmless as far as foundation aid, because the rejiggered formula would have lowered ours, so they kept it where it is. So even if foundation aid gets increased, we're unlikely to get any of that?
I would agree with you, because even the GEA, the gap elimination aid restoration, is now being attached to a wealth formula so that less wealthy districts are given their GEA back sooner, and they're talking about it taking 4 years to get to Port Washington.
And we're considered a wealthy district because they use mean income as opposed to median income. And one very, very rich person offsets a whole lot of people at the lower end.
It is a combination of personal wealth and property values. So I would imagine perhaps that one individual also has great property wealth, but the town overall has great property wealth.
And it's my understanding that next year there will be no rebate checks. The rebate, if any, will be handled on your New York State tax return, and it will not be a refundable credit. So if you don't owe any tax, you will not get any credit. And that they're lowering the income limit to be able to actually receive the credit if you were to stay. So the pool of people who can receive the $130 rebate would be diminished, would be much smaller than it is now.
That's correct.
Thank you.
I just have a few things on the staffing. Some questions came up from some parents, so I just want to reiterate that we had originally been saying that if we did not try to pierce the tax cap, that there would not be significant cuts. But we have, in reassessing everything, the administration has made it clear to us that because of those programs, as was mentioned, the ESL teachers, the mandates, we would have to hire those 3 new staff members and therefore find the money somewhere. So that would mean either a cut to program or staff or both. So I just want to make sure everyone understands that that is different than what we had been saying. As for the security guards, I serve with Dr. Mooney on the Emergency Preparedness Committee, and I just want to elaborate that it is people that are professionals in the industry of security, whether it is members of the FBI and those that have dealings with Homeland Security, and all these people are volunteers in our community. It's the police and the fire department. They're individuals who provide security in the private sector, and they are all taxpayers. And they say without any hesitation, we need a security guard at each building. And they have helped us time and again. And we talk about the shootings, and a lot of people will say, well, one person isn't going to stop an active shooter, and neither is any of the change in the front vestibules in all the buildings. Those are deterrents. But those individuals, those human beings, are going to help us deal with situations that are going to keep our children safe, as they do almost every day in the district now. Things come up all the time, and the reason that all of you don't hear about it is because they are dealt with safely and none of our children come to harm, and we want to continue that way. So I would really urge all of you to consider, if you're having objections about that, if they're really well-founded. And please also keep in mind these are retired police officers who have had a lot of experience in security, and the total cost of hiring these new security guards is not significant in the scheme of our budget, and certainly not if you're talking about the safety of our children and our staff. So that's something that's very important to us as we serve on the committee and we hear really the dark and ugly things going on that you don't even want to know about. And as for the supervisor in the facilities, the assistant to Mr. Restano, that is something, I think that it kind of came up. It was new to us, the whole idea of having this assistant, and there's been a lot of discussion, and I think it's something I personally have to mull over because I've worked with Mr. Restano on a lot of things. I've been here over weekends when he's been here. I've been here when water main breaks or boilers break and there's no heat. I was here with him all the time during Hurricane Sandy. He is the one. He has to be here all the time, and he has to be here all day, and he has to oversee everything that goes on in all of these facilities. And I don't know why we weren't talking sooner about the fact that we needed someone else there, because it's not a question of the great custodial staff and all the people that maintain everything in the district, but money is scarce, and it's just something I think we have to think about, and think about whether it's something we could stretch out a little longer to do or we have to do it now. The bond work was brought into discussion with it originally, and that does add just more to Mr. Restano's plate, but it's not really the only reason we need to be doing it. So I think I for one, need to take some time to think that one over. And I think those were my only comments about staffing. Anybody else, anything? Yes.
I myself would also just like to urge anybody who has any budget questions to not just rely on people spewing different facts, but if you have any specific questions, to perhaps email the board or Mrs. Callahan or anything, just to get your facts straight. Don't take one person's word over another.
I meant to say earlier and didn't, so I will now, that it was really gratifying to see such a big turnout at our community forum to talk about the schools and the issues, and whichever side of that you may be on, I wanted to just thank everybody for coming, because it's really important, and it's important for us to hear everything going on out there. So as Ms. Nadolny said, we really would urge anyone to ask us questions or contact us with any of their comments. We will be appearing in several locations. If anyone wants to follow us, we will try and post those meetings. And our next board meeting, I'll just mention now, is going to be changed to Thursday night, April 7th. That is based on all of our availability. That's why it's going to be on a Thursday night. And we are putting it out a little bit later because we really do need to ratify the budget, and we need a little more time to do that than the March 29th meeting, but we need to do it before the following meeting in April, so that's why we're having it that evening. And we will try to keep as much information coming on the website and everywhere else that we can. Until then, there will be a budget meeting before then. When is the next budget meeting? March 21st. We may have other meetings scheduled before that, before the April 7th meeting, so we'll keep everyone apprised. So I think that's it for now. So thank you, Mary. And we'll now go to the committee reports.
Sorry. The last Policy and Personnel Committee meeting was on February 26th. I was unfortunately unable to attend, but meeting went well. There's actually very thorough minutes posted right now on the website. And in fact, on the agenda today, we have the first reading of two policies that have been slightly modified, and that's policy, as a result, these were discussed at the February 26th meeting. And it's policy 5020, which is equal educational opportunities, and policy 9010, and that's equal employment opportunities. And in both cases, and they're actually posted online, and in both cases the change has been that we are adopting or proposing that we adopt new language from a NYSBA sample policy regarding extending the protections that are afforded by both of those policies to include a more extensive protection for persons with gender identity, persons to protect gender identity and personal expression issues. So that's the language that has been added in both of those cases. The next meeting is on March 18th, and apologies that because I wasn't at the meeting, I didn't get what our next topic is. I don't know if we want to just post that. For the next time, we'll post it because I did miss that last meeting. Okay, that will be posted in plenty of time, and I know there's people out there who like to get it out, and I will get it to you as soon as I can.
I just wanted to add, I apologize I did not get a chance to mention this to you, but many parents were asking about the policy committee in which we were discussing the tutoring policy and the returning of tests. And so I just wanted to clarify that it was left with the board and superintendent asking Mr. Pernick, the high school principal, to be speaking with his staff and getting back to us on where we're going to be going from here, which is potentially, hopefully, to be changing the way this is working right now. So we'll be discussing that further, and when we'll hear more about it, Dr. Mooney will let us know. Budget and facilities, Mr. Bear isn't here. I think we've talked about pretty much of the budget and facilities. The next meeting is the 21st, and I think we have to talk about whether we're gonna let you know on the agenda, because we have a lot to talk about, and we were going to be focusing on the turf infill, but now because we have a lot to review, we might want to talk about rescheduling that. So we will talk about that. Curriculum, Mr. Reed.
Curriculum, we have not met since our last meeting, so there's nothing new to report. Our next meeting is, I believe, on March 31st, which is a Thursday, not a Friday. Yes, because we're not going to meet on April Fool's Day.
The agenda is the Schreiber's Technology Education Program.
Okay. What? Okay, we're going to move to the action items. Going to move items A1 through C4. Do I have a second? Wait, I have to pull. I'm going to do A1 after. So A2 to C4. Do I have a second? Mr. Greenstein, all in favor? 5-0. Okay, item A1, that is our nomination for the Nassau BOCES Board, and we are nominating.
BA Schoen.
Okay. Do I have a second? Mrs. Johnson, all in favor of that nomination? 5-0. Thank you. That is the gentleman that was here earlier this evening to give some of our board members an award, and it's not why we're nominating him.
He is the incumbent, has been on the board for many years at BOCES.
That's why. Okay. The board policies. Okay, we're going to approve for the first reading, as Mrs. Johnson said earlier, policy 5020 and policy 9010. And now, any old business? New business? Opportunity for the community to be heard.
Frank Russo again. I think that we agree apparently that the tax increase 1.1 million and the pension cost reduction 1.6, 2.7 million. That was agreement. But then I was surprised at the state aid. So I think I heard Mary say the state aid that you know about is like 200,000. Again, I'm not sure, but I did a lot of checking. I have a lot of contacts. I'm under the impression it's closer to 650,000. Not definite, but a high probability. So this is interesting, but I think you said 200,000, so there's a 450,000 difference in the state aid then, which is interesting. But again, I'm not positive. I'd say 70% certain it'll be the 650,000 or more. That's with the cap elimination. On the retirees, again, we have 450 teachers, normally 3%. I mean, I've been doing this 45 years. 3% normally retire. This is very unusual. Maybe they were incented to retire in earlier years, and now none left. I don't know. But 4 retirees, 1%, less than 1% of our teachers. Very unusual if it happens. I'm guessing there's going to be another 6 to 8 teachers retiring, but I could, I'm not sure about it. I have to admit it. Schreiber classes, a key point that I want to just stress again. I think we've got 130 classes, regular classes, not special needs type classes, where we could consolidate them with existing classes in the same subjects and say between 5 and 10 teacher positions and assign those to the elementary schools where I have a feeling there's a greater need in my judgment. I mean, that's what I would say based on the studies I've seen. Very critical class size at the lower elementary school grades especially. Now, the final thing, also some maintenance savings I would think are going to be possible with the bonds. And again, we supported this budget because you met the cap the last 3 years. I don't want to oppose it, but if you go above it, we're going to oppose it. And unfortunately, we're going to have to bring up this bond issue, which I really don't want to bring up again. I know you were all honest. None of you were meaning to deceive the public. But that's what happened with the PR guidance you got. You never told the public that we were going to give up $8,000 in tax cuts, $450 a year. You said it once at a meeting, Karen, 10:30 at night when there were 10 people here. But the community never heard this, that we're giving up $450, the average homeowner, $450 a year for 17 years, $7,500, $8,000. We're going to make a big point out of that. Again, unintentional deception by the board. Because you're too honest. None of you would do it deliberately, but when I talked to 20, 30 people afterwards, they had no idea that was happening. And we're going to make a big point out of it because you're spending $70 million more when I think it could have been much, much lower. And you're you deceived the public unintentionally, perhaps, as to how much it was going to cost them.
30 seconds.
It's not $740, which is what you told us, that we're giving up with an increase, but we were giving up a reduction we would have gotten of $8,000 over 17 years, and you never told the voters that. So I don't want to have to bring that up, but it's going to be brought up again if the tax cap is exceeded. I hope you don't do it. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Are there any, okay.
George Borda, I'm curious if the new security personnel are retired police officers. Are they carrying weapons? Because they are allowed to, and that would be provide deterrence, of course. But I would urge the board to provide a lot of training, because we don't want any of our denizens to be shot by accident, especially when they're coming into the parking lot. Okay, thank you.
That will end community comments. I just want to say, even though we were accused of deceiving the public unintentionally, I still feel that I should say, and we have shown it many times on record, on video, on transcripts, that we did tell the community exactly how it was being structured, and that money, exactly how it was all working. So just for the record, even unintentionally, we did not deceive anyone. So thank you, and have a good night.